All right, guys, welcome back this morning. Very blessed to be here, giving thanks and grateful for this opportunity to tune in and transmit the transmission to y'all, okay? So we bring in a message, shout out to the Most High, okay? And that's what this is all about, okay? So I want to talk about principles. I want to talk about simplicity, all right? And we're going to start right where we're at this morning. All right, so thanks again, guys, for tuning in. And make sure you hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned for the latest stuff that we have dropping your way. And I'm going to go ahead and link up a free download for you guys in the description here. It's called 15-Minute Wellness Blueprint. So that's a free gift. We're going to have more stuff coming for the end of the year and kicking it off into 2026, because I want to have you guys feeling ready, grounded, and making steps, taking strides today and tomorrow and towards your goals and where you want to be headed. So that's the focus right here, guys, is helping people, helping as many people as possible, because we want these next generations coming up to be the strongest. We want to reverse the shift of flow, where it's going. We want to make now the pendulum start to swing back towards, principle, being grounded, simplicity, organic, natural, humanness, humanity, going back to the roots, right? And we want that foundation to be strong, the strongest it's ever been. And we're going to use technology and the principles that are now, existing from all of history up until this present day. And so we have that opportunity now to dial those things in together, in a sense, to take the best of what we know through our past, through our history, through the lens of the forefathers and the ancestors. And this means the entire full spectrum, right? The entire hue of humanity. Okay, so we'll get back more on that later and how we can actually do that, because that's going to be the hardest part through communication as as human beings, as people, right? And so the flip side is using technology, using the tools available right now. We have things like AI, ChatGPT, all the different Gemini, all the different amazing things coming out. And obviously we want to use those things to help define the next generation in this context that we're talking about, of helping to ground humanity back into its essence before we lose ourselves building towers to the sky, to the clouds, where they will eventually crumble and fall. So let's break it down right now and get back to the basics. So what I want to discover with you guys today is and discuss further is something called SMART. Okay, so this is basically why the basics never expire and why SMART principles still run the game. All right, let's go. Okay, so let's dive right in. SMART is an acronym. Like, for instance, when you first start training, they teach you all these basics. I'm talking about personal training when I originally started doing it many, many years back, post athletic experience, right? And post dealing with injuries. And if you see some of my previous videos and as you follow the channel, I'll be talking about that stuff more. But the main thing is some of those developments, those simple things early on stick with you, and you forget that the basics are so important. If you don't have those down, it's almost like, well, that's it. You're not trying to teach everybody all the fancy hacks and mastery right off the bat. You're actually just trying to realize that you had to go through this very kind of almost boring but basic foundational process, or you could say experience. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely, or time bound, right? I've always said timely because you want it to be, again, that's part of being attainable, but time bound also signifies like you have this way of looking at it cyclically, weeks, months, years, mastering the idea of building that schedule for yourself of when, you should be able to attain something. Is it attainable? Well, you'd have to ask yourself, can you see yourself doing that? That's the most important thing, right? Because if you think too consciously, you might lose it. But that's why we start out with specific, okay? So specific is what's going to help you identify not only a goal, but then the components of the goal, right? This is why simplicity is king, okay? So measurable just means that you have a way of actually denoting what specific is. Well, is it in seconds or minutes? Well, how do you know? Well, because they're both measurable units that we've defined, but there's different ways to define that in any certain thing. Like for instance, with regards to fitness, it's important not only to be able to measure things like your weight, but also your body fat percentage, or at least get a pretty solid estimate, because for instance, you could lose some weight, but at the same time, you're gaining body fat, and that's not your goal, right? Or vice versa, you're not seeing the scale change, but you're actually changing your body composition. That's a common one, and actually that's a good place to be, because it means you're building the muscle. The muscle is dense. You're not seeing the shift in the weight yet, right? So anyway, these are why these things are important, just simple things, so that's where we start out. That's why the whole foundation of what I'm going to give you guys is just simple stuff. It's not like it's not all the flash. Like, if anything, that's what we're defining here. It's like this whole place that we've come to is the tower, so to speak, of Babel, Babel. And I want to cross into everything with you guys so you can help get this more holistic understanding of things. But etymology is a great foundation when we're talking about foundations, because that's the foundation of how words and languages grow and expanded, and how the meanings are all intertwined. But anyway, so we've created this world where we do like to have these very extreme ways of looking at our day-to-day existence here as humans, right? And there's nothing necessarily wrong with extremes, but they always come, like, extremes are preceded by the next phase in the orbit, which is return or balance, So there's nothing wrong with extremes. They help teach us a lot. It's actually the point of life is polarity, is extremes. Otherwise, you'd be at one with everything, right? So in a sense, this is really what we're experiencing when we're dealing with the polarity, night and day, waking, sleeping, conscious versus unconscious, hot versus cold, good versus bad. That's the world we deal with. And we're going to stay on track today. We're not going to go off into the esoteric, but shout out, real quick, my most recent book, The Art and Science of Mindset, where I go into some of that stuff. If you guys want to check it out, please do. I just updated the published version to also be, I think, probably a few pages longer now, but a little easier to read as far as the layout and the print size. So, okay. Anyway, moving on. You guys can check that out if you want. And shout out, I do have another book coming real soon. I want you guys really to check out that I think is going to be, we're going to do a bunch of stuff with that, but that's going to be super key for helping just put all the pieces together. And same with what we're talking about today. Okay. So that's why I have the 15-minute wellness blueprint. It's just basics again, but it's good for you guys to start there. And then you can also kind of basically connect and stay up to date, stay in tune with what we have going on. So just drop your email. You can download that. You can learn more if you want about the free community side of things. And then today we're going to talk about basically, once we go to a higher level of, like, if you want really to define these things, that's all we're going to do. We're going to define what is specific, and we're going to lay out exactly how you can take, it's just breaking this stuff down, guys. You can do it. You already know how to do it. It's already ingrained in you. But we all can attest to, like, working with other people and working together in life, collaborating, whether it's like a student, teacher, or coach, and it's just on whatever level, right? There's a dynamic, there's a range of communication, everything, right? So the point I'm making is that this is how, as humans, we share information and learn. Because again, in that dynamic of whether it's, the teacher and the pupil, or the master and the apprentice, or whatever it be, there is a way of like, there's a storytelling that's going on because you're kind of experiencing someone else's experience through their story, through their life, and through then their knowledge and their teaching. But it's also like that. It's a direct exchange of experience where we see what only in some sense time or wisdom or experience can show. Okay, so now let's move on to the last one. We talked about attainable real quick. Relevant. This means it's connected, right, to your goals. So this is how we're going to tie it all together, right? You define something that's specific. You find your way to measure it. Okay, I want to lose weight. I want to check that in pounds. I'm also going to look at my body fat percentage to see how I'm making progress. But this is going to be my ultimate goal. Like, I'm not just looking at my weight, I'm looking at my muscle mass too, right? I'm looking at certain numbers of what I could do with my body. Perhaps it's not even about lifting a certain amount of weight. It's just being about moving my body weight in a certain way, or being able to move in and out of different positions or different spaces or different scenarios, and be comfortable and connect my core and connect my spine and connect the muscles of who I am to maybe from a dancer's perspective to my spirit, right? So that I can express in this fluid, right? Or a musician, right? So this is it's all interconnected, right? But the reason why I drop some of that stuff is so you can have some real life examples, right? So like, for instance, when I was younger and I was training specifically for hockey, we would do very specific things. Like when we would do conditioning, we would look at 30 to 90 seconds. That's sprinting. That's all out. That's what a normal hockey shift is. And we would measure, okay, how can your conditioning hold up when we do this at the end of practice after you're already tired? Okay, round 1, round 2, round 3, now you're really starting to feel it. So this is why we would train these types of ways. Or even like when you're looking at weight training, some times you're training heavy, lower reps. Sometimes you're training light with higher reps. Really combining those 2 or 3 with the balance point in the middle, the transition point, combining those 3. I talk about those periodizations. So stuff like that. But it's just having a more nuanced and open, but also more organized way of seeing things. Like, you're dealing with patterns, right? So these measures allow us to then say, okay, well, it's attainable because I can do this in this amount of time, and then I can do this in this amount of time, and I can actually see myself not only adding this muscle, losing this weight, but that means eventually, I can potentially do these back squats that's, over my body weight, or I can learn to do a muscle up, or far better, I can learn, self-defense, something very, very practical, or I can learn how to climb up and down from a ladder to a roof and be safer and be more agile and more connected to my core and my body, so to speak. There's 1,000,001 ways which we as human beings integrate daily life into training and vice versa. And I've talked about this, how the ancient way was just you're training through life, okay? So without going too long on this one topic today, but I wanted you guys to get, we're really just going to start with the basics. And the process of building content right now, especially, is me having to sit down and do that, create some organization, create some specific things, create a measurable way where I can offer it to you, then also give you a way to apply it, and then make it realistic to everybody. And then the time, that's up to you. Like, do you take action? Do you do things with discipline, or do you say you want to do it and procrastinate? We've all been there. We've all probably been that person at one point, but you want to shift gear. And that's what this channel is about. The most high is the highest point, and that's the point that begins the story, so to speak, right? And we always have to come back to a new beginning. Even the ending is a new beginning. So I want you guys to think about beginning to become, and for everyone, okay? And so for me, like, my mission is just to get this out there and to also organize it by doing that, right? The information. But that's why I built some of these tools already. That's why I wanted to have a foundation. That's why I wanted to write my book, to give a little background too of me and my own personal story, because a lot of that comes from dealing with injuries and being so down and out that I could basically periods of time with dealing, like, for instance, leg sciatic pain and lower back pain, stuff like that. But definitely, you know, just blacking out for months at a time, damn near, when it was most traumatic. So, just every moment trying to get up and deal with the day, trying to be comfortable, whatever position. And at the time I had clients, at the time I was still training, to some degree. Luckily, the gym was like right across the way, literally across the street. But nevertheless, I remember it was like so specifically painful to both sit, stand, lay down, sleep. It was just nonstop. There's maybe a couple positions I could get while I was laying down, but it was just a nonstop type of pain. So again, I want to go into that stuff, and I want to go into why you should always, always try to steer clear of pushing your body in ways that could cause too much damage. It doesn't mean you can't learn from that. Sure, I absolutely learn from that, but I wouldn't tell people to learn from that type of pain. I would tell you to start exactly where you're at, and then use what tools others have given or offered from their experience, like mine. So I started training very, very young, pushing things very, very hard and at very, very high levels early on. So anyway, what I can definitely offer is, and there's some great people out there. There's some awesome people that I love. I want to shout out, obviously the OGs, and then some of the newer content creators, influencers, coaches, trainers, whatever, the people out there that are doing great things. But yeah, for now, I want you guys to take that, home with you. Like, the greatest thing I've definitely learned from my pain is this organization of yourself, of your mind, of who you are. And we're going to go deeper into, like, for instance, how, what are methods that you can use. Well, one simple thing is you can have a workout journal where you just start to even keep track of when you're working out, generally what you did that day, general PRs, or all any milestone. Like, once you just start doing this, your brain naturally wants to do it more. And then on top of the workouts, you're going to write, okay, my meal plan for today. And then maybe you start to break it down into calories, and we can help you do all of this stuff and even give you the spreadsheets. And I'm actually going to give you guys some even better tools, to the point where it's like, this will get such second nature. You don't even have to start looking at it the same way. You can actually shift into a whole level, because now you're on the radiant side of reality, right? Most people I would say, we're consuming energy rather than rating it. When you there's a balance of both. But, like, for instance, if you're going to your job, you're constantly giving them your energy. Well, you think, okay, well, the thing about that is you're actually now consuming, because now they're paying you, they're giving you the paycheck. So what I mean is, like, we've created a world where we don't even realize how these things are draining us. But then, say you're building a business, or you start creating a channel, or you're putting content, or even if you post on social media regularly or something, where you're sharing authenticity in your personal experience. Well, okay, then now you're starting to tap into, I think, what I'm getting at. And the reason why is because everything comes down to this specific, measurable, realistic, attainable, and timely way of breaking the world down. So someone's going to relate to that piece of your story, just like you could maybe relate to something about the piece of my story. Because this is a critical year in my life, and actually, it wasn't too soon after that I went through some serious. It was probably over a period of 2 to 3 years when I really was dealing with the height of some of my lower back, my left hamstring, hip, and basically just all over lower body pain, upper body, neck. It would translate into everything. But this was kind of the height, and a lot of it had to do with my own sort of stubbornness, pushing myself too hard, not rehabilitating properly, because I actually kind of kept re-hurting. Specifically at this time, it was like my left hamstring, where I would just absolutely, I tore it and it destroyed it. And then it was like, it took forever because I kept pushing it. Once I would get to a pretty good place, and then I basically re-injured it a couple times. And I'm dealing already, at this point, I was dealing with major injuries since I was 16. So I detail, again, more in a little bit of my story in one of the chapters in my book, Art and Science of Mindset. Again, guys, check that out. Please feel free. I'll be doing some sales hopefully here by the end of the year. trying to fit it all in because we are busy right now with everything, and also getting the channel to the next level, so where I can give you guys more and more and more of, put more and more and more into this avenue. So that's why your support, writing comments, just dropping a like or whatever, subscribing, it really, really helps. Really, really appreciate that, guys. So thank you. But anyway, losing track of where I was going with that. Let's kind of wrap it up here, where obviously what I'm trying to get at, guys, is that we're doing a lot, we're building a lot, but I want you to be able to do so much of this and internalize so much of this. And that's why I'm putting so much into this, is because I want it to be something you internalize. So like going back to like, being able to track your meals, we kind of had that point earlier. Well, you get to a point where you just start to know, what you're doing, what your intake is, or you're so used to doing it every meal that boom, it's just second nature if you're that type of person. And I think it's important to realize there's different learning styles or different type of people. There's, again, this gets back at like the farmer is not going to necessarily train or use the same muscles or have the same strengths as the cobbler, right? Back in the day, or something, so to speak, right? The hunter versus the gatherer, etc., right? The basket weaver, or man versus the woman's roles at maybe this particular snapshot, that's lens that we're dealing with, a different time, a different place. But it's important to remember we've gotten away from realizing like how as humans, this is who we are. This is so ingrained in us because it's our nature. We cannot disconnect from nature as much as we've tried. We've already tried. We've already pushed this extreme. So anyway, and that's one of the reasons why I like to go outside and do as much as I can, but we just want to take this to a whole nother level as far as wellness, traveling, sharing so much more with you guys. And then we have a lot to share already as far as, what I'm working on, what I'm trying to bring forth, and just even bringing some of this content out, bringing some stories forward, bringing some of my experience forward. Again, I talk about being like a hockey player and where my time in those worlds of like team building really impacted me to understand what I'm saying here, touching on an earlier point, is that we are not just individuals, but we've been led to believe we're in this time where we are just individuals. And it's great that we all have the individual platform, because then we can actually organize better. But the problem is that we're losing this sense of connection and building with one another, and understanding that like the real competition is within oneself versus like competing for materials and resources that kind of create this greater imbalance or create literally subhuman value in some sense when you're talking about violation of human rights or child labor, or not even to get into the crazy sides of the darkness of the world, so to speak, in the corruptness of institutions, governments, the underground rings of trafficking in all forms. Human trafficking particularly is probably one of the worst underbelly realities of this world. So again, a lot of this comes through consciousness within the human experience being pushed into those places. So we want to reverse that and have people doing what they can do on a basic level, is by people opening that consciousness on whatever level, even you going to the gym, right? Once that is starting to open more and more and more and more, then it's like the old saying that even a small candle will chase away the darkness of a room. So once you light one candle and then you light the next and light the next, that that metaphor in that sense, right? Because we know the yin and yang is actually this integration and balance of both. But when we talk about this archetype and this story and this cycle, right? The earth cycle, we could say. The metaphor is that we're lighting that candle inside of you, your vital, life-giving, radiant energy. So that's what we want to inspire in you. Remember inspiration, right? The breath, the spirit. God is in the word and in the breath and in the spirit and in this wave. And I talk about how the lungs are connected to the heart and how everything is in this wave and expansion and contraction state. Okay, anyway, guys, so for today, bringing it home, again, we are going to go on this wave between the esoteric and the very grounded, like, okay, what can you do next? Well, first, Download that 15-minute wellness blueprint if you haven't. Just go over all that stuff. Sign up for a call, join the free community, or just hit me up, DM me directly and connect with me, or just reach out, whatever way, and we'll set something up with you guys. We'll link up, we'll do a phone call, or we'll just start right off the bat. If you feel ready, we'll just start with one-on-one coaching, get you dialed in, and as we build a community, we're just going to get stronger and stronger. So and it's about just being this community so that we can obviously share, and I want to connect with other creators. Obviously I'm an artist and a musician, so I talk more about that too, because in the music and arts there needs to also be this wellness balance, and really we're seeing those shifts already. So it's just to add to those things, vice versa, in wellness and in fitness. Everybody knows, when you're going to the gym, you got your earbuds in, you got that music on. Some people, maybe it's more about just the sounds of nature or the stillness or the quiet, but regardless, the ambiance, the vibe, right? We know that that's all built in together. So we want to take that, boom, push it out in a maximal way. And we're just in our corner doing our thing right now. So I want you guys to join in, definitely tap in, and just get connected. And as I share more and more my story, hopefully you'll feel aligned and ready and inspired to do the same, or even called. It's like inspiration is great, but sometimes you're not inspired. You just do it because you get to this place where you're like, well, what else are you going to do? You just, the same thing you've been doing, the same job, the same world of that, that doesn't care, right? Because we know the world, the system doesn't care about us in that individuality sense that is vital to us to express, from a core essence of who we are and what we're here to do. So it's about reversing that current in that tide, So the real lesson is to master the simple, and then the complex becomes easy. Okay, so take that with you guys today. Foundation first, always, and that's just what we're here building, right? It's not, the whole point is to invert and troll this BS ideology that's out there today. So we want to go back to this ancient integration, but the ancient tradition in the modern system when it comes to high performance, it's the same truth, guys. It eventually circles back. It's eventually the same thing as a human breathing then versus breathing now, or breathing here versus breathing on the other side of the world. You're breathing in and breathing out. It's the same concept. It's the same thing. This is your foundation, okay? Take that again with you guys today. That's all that we're building here. It starts super, super simple, but will guide you every step of the way. Because once we break those pieces down for you, you're going to be like, oh, okay, well, I can accomplish this, and then I can accomplish this, and I can accomplish this. But if you've never done that, or you try and then you get discouraged, well, sometimes you just need to see it. You just need to walk through it, or you need to have someone help you. And there's tons of people out there. There's tons of coaches. There's tons of places to find that. And we're hopefully going to give you so much here you can do it on your own. But again, this gets back to humanity and connecting and building. The beautiful thing is we can tap in and we can take this to another level. And if you guys do tap in, you do join in, you do contribute, well, then you become a team member, really. You're not just a client or a student. We'll be doing that. We'll be taking that, and you'll be learning with the other individuals present as we build on the group calls and all those sessions too. So we're just laying it out there. But right now, it's important to get content out. And I want you guys, again, to hear some of my story. And I want to help you guys connect to some of my life and my vision. And I will talk more about the music, but you can always find that too and check some of that stuff out and incorporate more of that. I love playing guitar. I developed my voice as far as learning how to sing. I was super shy, super quiet when I was younger, but I just always loved music. So, hopefully you guys feel passionate in some way for life about something. That's my one hope. In wellness, I always feel like it's a center point, because you can't really, even if you're disabled, how your mindset around your body, your disability, how you engage work with what you have, that's everything. But yeah, if you have your full body, guys, every single day, you have such a blessing, such a gift. 2 legs, 2 arms, 2 eyes, 2 ears. get up and use it or lose it. And that's what this is all about right now, is that moment. Trust me, it's like one moment will shift your entire life. And for someone who's gone through so much pain, and still to this day, I have difficult moments, difficult days, and that, for instance, this business is something that I've envisioned for a long time, and I've already done a ton around my world of music and turning that into a business and a lifestyle. Now we're doing the same for this, whereas in the past I've had clients, work for gyms and stuff like that. Now we're taking it to a whole another level, and not just in terms of fitness, not even just in terms of wellness, but a whole other, even a new aspect that's new for everybody. So we're going to talk more about like technology. We're going to talk more about how you can use these things to free yourself up again, to get back to that experience, to actually have time for that experience. And that's what it comes all the way back to, foundation first, once again. And we'll leave it there for today. Thanks again so much, guys, for tuning in. All right, we'll see you on the other side. Make sure to hit that subscribe. Bless. Peace out.